One of my favorites, Creature Cantina, which is basically like most of Kenner's playsets, was a really poor job of making something fun. It was just a piece of plastic with a couple of levers and a piece of cardboard. And it was remade into the Real West Cafe. You can see that some of the stuff they added, like boards and things, decals representing boards. And there's the horse that became the Indiana Jones horse. There's two things side by side. The Real West itself was a recycled idea. It had started out as Butch and Sundance, and when that movie tanked, they changed it into the Real West line and just made it a general Western themed thing, so they didn't tie it to the movie. And it's kind of funny that the Star Wars Cantina is based on old Westerns and stuff, and this thing ended up as a Western playset. But how many of those didn't a lot of those turn out as Real West cafes? Because they were really rare at one time, and I've seen a bunch of them. I don't know.
I mean, a handful of them showed up at one time, like 5 or 6 of them at one time.
But it's still pretty tough. One of the most common or ubiquitous of Star Wars toys, is everyone familiar with this? The first mail-away display stand. Well, yeah, first mail-away display stand. And the format of this is such that any figure line of this scale could really be used on there. Just change out the backdrop and the stickers. And it became the Glamour Gals display stand. Glamour Gals was an attempt to sort of bring the whole Barbie fashion doll thing to a Star Wars scale. They had such success with boys' toys, so I guess they figured they'd try it with girls' toys. And this is a really tough item. It was also mail-away, just like the Star Wars one, and they must not have done many of them, because I've only ever seen 3 or 4. I managed to get one in the shipper box a while back. I thought it had never been made, but then I found that one.
But even among Glamour Gals collectors, this is considered to be like a really, really hard to find item. And believe it or not, there are some really, really hardcore Glamour Gals collectors out there.
Isaac? But this is actually, the Star Wars one's kind of pointless. I mean, they're just on there, and they want to make it an action feature, but really they just spin around, and you're like, why am I spinning my figure? But the Glamour Gals are supposed to pose and stuff because they're models, and so it's kind of more appropriate to Glamour Gals in Star Wars. So it's actually a pretty good recycled toy. Return of the Jedi and afterwards. At this point, Star Wars was like an old-time toy company in the toy industry, and it's been around for several years. Huge success. Kenner has a whole warehouse full of Star Wars stuff they've already developed. And it's like a well they can go to pull stuff for other lines out of. So again, you see nothing really into Star Wars and quite a bit out of it. Harrison Ford. A lot of you probably know what's coming. Indiana Jones. I'm sure this doll would never have been made if the Han doll wasn't already made. Someone at Kenner had a bright idea that, hey, we already made a Harrison Ford figure. We can just port this over and make an Indiana Jones figure. They didn't, nothing on this doll, aside from the boots maybe, was hard to produce. The belt is sewn strips of leather, so that didn't have to be molded. The whip is a piece of twine or whatever, that didn't have to be molded. Everything else was sewn together clothes. Even the hat, which you'd usually see, would be like a plastic hat or something. It's like a piece of felt. And, you know, it's odd because Han's head's kind of 70s looking, and he's got a 70s haircut. And they changed the eyes for some reason. I don't know what color Harrison Ford's eyes are, but they're blue on the indie doll. Tree Tots Treehouse. This is a hugely popular Kenner toy, a big success for them. I had it when I was a kid. They made it for a long time. It's kind of like a treehouse, but it has like 70s apartment stylings inside. It's kind of like the Swiss Family Robinson plus like a sitcom family from the 70s, like the Good Times folks. It's a cool toy. And Ewok Family Hut, also here in several auctions, was not recycled completely, but the idea totally comes from this. It's like, hey, we have already made a treehouse. Ewoks live in trees. Let's make an Ewok Family Hut. And chunky tree tot figures were the inspiration for unreleased Star Tots, and then later the Ewok figures, and you can totally see how they're very similar. It's Kenner trying to take a successful item, Chip, Barky, and Honey there, and port them into other licenses. And in some ways, the Galactic Heroes concept is a little bit similar, although it's combined obviously with a lot of super deformed stuff. But this is a chunky preschool line that people have been doing for a long time. 3-position laser rifle, shown here with Empire Strikes Back, so here from my catalog. Was a really cool toy back in the 70s and early 80s. Also released without the stock as the electronic laser rifle. I think they changed the internals. Doesn't this spin or something on the inside? Yeah. In the holes? So I don't think the laser rifle does. Made into a Batman gun, or a sonic neutralizer. Actually, it wasn't technically not a gun. We see it has a bat symbol on the end, and some colored stuff and a decal. And it was later issued again in 1995 in white. Again, you see the 70s kid looks a lot tougher there than the Batman. He's going to take someone down with that thing. Kind of a special case that they give out awards for the most recycled lines, the Robin Hood line. I'm sure it's another instance of Kenner having this license. Robin Hood turned out to be bigger than it was, and they thought it was going to be, and so they had to scramble to put this thing together. Most of the figures in the line, I think, come from Superpowers and other lines, but they covered them up with cloaks and things. The 2 accessories on the bottom there come from the Bone Age line, which is like a prehistoric themed line. It's like the Bolo bomber and the net launcher or something. Ewok Village playset, I'm sure you're all familiar. Became the Sherwood Forest playset. They basically added some leaves on this thing in some different colors.
The trees are molded in different colored plastic. It has a different paint scheme on the hut area there.
There's also some launchers, what am I looking for? Crossbows launched on the rails on the front. That's Robin Hood thinking he's an Ewok there. Both toys featured the rather strange hanging rock that just kind of swings back and forth. It's just so you can see them side by side. Battle Wagon, I think it's one of the cooler vintage toys myself. I like that big skull and everything. It wasn't available for that long, and they probably viewed it as sort of a failure considering the line was dying then, but they managed to recycle it as the Robin Hood Battle Wagon. You can see there's some stuff meant to evoke like bronze and some rivets added onto that thing, but it's basically the same thing.
As well as the Ewok catapult on the top.
Yeah. It's coming up. Robin Hood toy, that's right. There's another familiar element. The Ewok catapult. The Ewok tool of mass destruction. So they put this thing, that's kind of clever to put that on the top there. I don't know if it, do you know if it snaps on or
it has mounting posts on top of the roof that actually connected to it, yeah.
You know, kids can take it off and have little play scenarios there. There's that little John trying to figure out how to work it. It's just so you can see them side by side. The Lemurian Guard, one of the most common Jedi figures. Used to find these all the time when I bought loose stuff a lot. And he has a distinctive costume there. So this was actually one of the earliest things I can remember people talking about being recycled. Into Friar Tuck. You can see it's basically the same, but I'm not sure what happened with the figure because it's not exactly the same. So it's not like they took the tool for one and made the other, because the Friar Tuck's details are smoothed out. I think he's got a knife sculpted onto his leg or something like that, or his wrist.
Yeah, in this case, they wouldn't have resurrected the tooling so much as they would have saved time on the sculpting cost. But they probably would have made a wax cast off of an original hard copy of the production Gamorrean Guard figure, and then re-sculpted that into the Friar Tuck.
I'm not sure why they bothered, because it's under a cloak anyway, so I don't know why they smoothed them out at all, but it's different significantly, but it's obviously based on the Morning Guard. So they're kind of like soulmates, these two guys. Hang out together, watch movies, and play video games and stuff. That was. So then, this came full circle in the 90s when Hasbro issued a whole slew of recycled stuff in the Power of the Force line. Remember, for a while there, every vehicle they released was basically based on the old stuff, even though the figures didn't fit in the cockpits. And I don't know if this stuff is really worth seeking out. It's more fun to look at it and know about it and try to look for new ones, because I'm sure there's stuff out there that I've never heard about that you all maybe would find independently looking at some other old catalog or some old toy maybe. But I managed to get a few things, like these are some stuff I have, including that Glamour Gals thing, which I actually looked for a long time. I wanted to see if it actually existed. And that's more or less it. Except for Dusty there. He doesn't want to be late to the party. I don't know if there's anything to add. Well, thanks for coming. There's going to be a lot of good stuff going on here today. So stick around, and I hope you liked it. Thanks. Oh, yeah, questions too. If anybody...
There was a playset for Geonosis. I think they use that for a G.I. Joe set.
Oh, yeah?
When you guys have played it, Jerry?
I think it was Jerry.
They used it for that came out a couple years ago, the Geonosis set.
Yeah.
They were used parts of that for some G.I.
Really?
Command stuff. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Parts of it, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, that's true too. A lot of little parts and things that you saw with the large size figures, that it's easy to take little, even though the figure's completely different, like, oh, we can take a gun or binoculars or make some added to that. And like, I'm sure there's tons of stuff out there that I've never heard of, or that no one's ever heard of, or that, you know about, and I don't, and it's interesting to hear about.
I think on the Indy horses, I think they used that Indiana Jones horse for the Lone Ranger horse. Not positive that.
Yeah, that was a Gabriel line, so and around the same time.
Very similar.
Like, I'm sure they probably, Gabriel may have looked at the Kenner one and said, hey, let's make something just like this. That's a possibility too. Anything else?
Did they make a horse for the 12-inch Indy?
No.
No.
They didn't?
I've never even seen anything conceptually that looked like they were going to. Yeah.
There was a horse for the Dusty figure, and the commercial was like burned in my brain.
The Dusty one, I think, is not...
It's called Nugget, by the way.
You do? Oh, you know that. That's good. It's called Nugget?
Yeah.
Good call. With that indie thing...
I was not proud of that.
That's all right. With that indie thing, I don't think they really ever intended to make anything else other than that large size figure. I think it was like, oh hey, we have that sitting around, let's recycle the Han and do it real cheap and sew everything up. We don't have to invest a lot of tooling in this thing. We can get it out there and complement our small figure line, So it's an interesting toy in that respect.
The impression that we've gotten from talking to some Kenner folks is that the Indy line was in some ways kind of a favor to Lucasfilm. It's like, we'll add this thing on, but it was never really... It wasn't. They didn't necessarily even have high hopes for it themselves. They rushed to get some things out, but because all that stuff came out quite a while after the movie. Actually,
it's surprising because you'd consider. I mean, Raiders was a huge hit, but on the other hand, it's like I don't know if there's that many figures in the line that you want to make that are that interesting, and the vehicles are kind of like there's a truck. Nothing. It's not like Star Wars where there's a ton of stuff. You're like, oh, this alien and this cool thing. So it's like I think Kenner probably thought it was pretty limited from the get-go in the line.
The Indy line would be better if they had more Indies in their assortments.
Yeah, that was before the days of making, there were several different loops and stuff. It's not like today when you get like 800 Batmans in every line. Anything else?
Was the Indy costume ever available through the fan club? I seem to remember getting the costume from the Fan Patrol. That would have been like 81, 82.
For the figure?
For the 12-inch figure, they set up photos.
I don't remember that, Duncan. I don't remember seeing that.
That's interesting, though. I mean, that's almost something they could have done. But that would undercut the sales of the dolls, so I'm not sure.
Maybe they had some leftovers or something.
Maybe. I don't know.
By the time they offered like the Western jacket,
Really?
And
So you're saying, but for the scale for the toy?
12-inch figure. My friend ordered the jacket and ordered that, and it came in a white metal box.
Really?
You know, itself, and I distinctly remember.
It's interesting.
But from the fan club, or from, is it possible from Kenner? Because the other thing I can think is that maybe someone, people used to write to Kenner and say, hey, my, X-Wing, is broken, or things like that, and they would send in for parts.
He got the Veston jacket, that whatever year that would have been, like 81, 82, and it was in this package, it was in the white metal. I distinctly remember.
That's interesting. I do think that if someone complained strenuously enough to Kenner and wrote them a letter, they probably would have sent someone to sue the clothes. They probably would have. That's cool.
I had one defective part for the Death Star set. They sent me a whole brand new.
Oh, they send pretty much. You just had to complain and they'd send you stuff, unless you did it too much, and then they stop. Do you have a question?
The very first poster art that came out, like there was a 3D Darth Vader and that type of thing. Was there anything like those were based off of before those?
I don't think the poster art sets, they're like the plates and dip dots. So, the plate set is the same size kind of as that, but I don't think there was another kind of color meaning poster art set like that. No. Yeah.
Are you saying Star Wars are the only planes?
No, I'm saying Star Wars. No, they made multiple planes, but I think the
Star Wars was the first one you're saying?
he's asking about the posters. He's asking about the posters. The color posters, and there's one that has like you build like a construction paper.
Yeah, I know that one. Okay, I guess, I don't know. I'm just trying to understand the question.
You're right. If it was like a line extension, if the poster art for like a line extension.
So anything before those that they were based on,
like in that kind of style of artwork. I can't think of any other Kenner posters that have that kind of pointless sort of style of art now.
Anything else?
What do you think of what Hasbro is doing right now? With the remakes
Oh.
different ships from the 2005 line,
Um,
these different clones. It's basically the same figure. But
yeah, I mean, I don't really collect the new stuff all that much. Not because I don't like it. I think that's what they're doing now is probably, some people probably like it, others probably don't. I mean, I don't have a huge opinion on it. I kind of lost, to me, I guess it's, all that stuff would kind of turn me off just because I don't want to feel like I'm always having to go buy it and not being really interested. That's kind of why I stopped buying it all. But I don't have a strong opinion about it, really.
I'm not saying.
Anything else? Good. Thanks.